Hello everyone, welcome to Engineering Data Analysis. In this video, we will be discussing about data gathering and sampling techniques. We have discussed an overview in our first video on the engineering method and statistical thinking. We had learned what's the role of engineer, how do we perform an engineering method, and some statistical terms that we may encounter in the next topics. Today, again, we will discuss data gathering, data gathering and sampling techniques. When collecting data, there are a lot of methods that we can perform. Okay, we can use or we can collect data from primary sources or from secondary sources. When we say primary sources, we collect data ourselves. We can have surveys, experiments, and we can get them from institutions or agencies, or even in our school registrar. We can also conduct questionnaires ourselves or personal interview. Well, secondary data or secondary sources of data were collected by other people. No, we do not personally collect the data, so we can get it from books, from journals, from magazines, or researches by other individual. So we just we are we can say that we are the second-hand user of that data. So again, there are two main sources of data. So we have the primary and the secondary sources. Then how to perform a collection of data? So again, we have this direct or an interview. Then we can also ask questionnaires or polls or surveys, or we can get from agencies like our registrar, from the NSO, from LTO, from the COMELEC, or even the PSA, the Philippine Statistical Agency. Am I right? Or its authority? I forgot. A. There are a lot of data in the website of PSA, especially if you want to talk about population, if you want to talk about mortality. Uh, okay, a lot of data are actually available in the PSA website. Or we can have observations. No, we just have watching or observing certain phenomena. And in the engineering method, we commonly perform experiments, right? Now, especially in our thesis or special our projects, the research projects, we perform experiments to confirm some things. Okay, to confirm our hypothesis. Okay, or generate conclusions out from the experiment. Now, we cannot, if we want to, sometimes the population is quite large. Okay, we cannot, if we use these methods, for example, direct or interview or indirect questionnaire, if, say, for example, the number of our population included in our study, which is about 10,000 or even just 1,000 or more. Now we cannot interview all of them. So what will we do is we get samples. So that's why we call it sampling techniques. Okay, we just get samples from a certain population. Now, in getting samples, we cannot just get them based on what we like. Or actually, that's one of the methods of sampling. But if if your if your study would be about numbers or quantitative research, um, that type of selecting your samples is not recommended. But there are actually uses of that. Okay, we'll discuss it later in the next slides. Now, there are two main methods in sampling. Now, on how do we get samples? We have non-probability sampling, and the other one is probability sampling. So you might have now the idea on the difference of the two, okay, from the word probability. Now, commonly the goal of non-probability sampling is you or the use of non-probability sampling again is for qualitative research, wherein let's say you have a specific type of participants. Okay, so say for example, if you want to study or about the study habits of working students. Okay, so that's a actually a selective type of research. No, we only entertain students who are working. Okay, then we will use non-probability sampling regarding that topic. However, if you just want to study the study habits of all students, then we will use probability sampling. And how do we identify the respondents? So there are a lot of methods. However, let's start first with non-probability sampling. In our probability sampling, we use our judgment, or it's actually subjective. No, it's conventional, or it's not. No, it's that the correct term is it's convenient because we select participants, or we call them respondents, okay, based on our judgment, and it's also economical, and we can save time. Okay, we can save time um, in the selection process. However, generating conclusions or analyzing the data would be might difficult, or it might not be reliable. Now, this non-reliability only talks about if we do quantitative research. If we use non-probability sampling, uh, yeah, and we're doing quantitative research, our data or our analysis, our conclusion might not be reliable enough. So again, we just perform non-probability sampling commonly if our research is in qualitative research. Then we have probability sampling. So here, every member has equal chance to be selected. So because we use probabilistic methods, and it's unbiased because it's not subjective. However, it would be tedious. Now, there are a lot of things to do that from the calculation in the selection process, and it's time consuming. So again, I would reiterate that probability sampling can be used in quantitative researches. When I say quantitative, no, it involves numbers. No, your researches which involves numbers. For example, if you just want um, to identify the, say for example, um, the average height of first year students. Okay, so that's a quantitative research or study. So we'll use probabilistic or probability sampling techniques. Here are some examples of those techniques. For non-probability, we can have convenience, or we can use quota or purposive sampling. When we say convenience, it's based on the convenience of the researcher and or of the respondents. We select people based on what are easily accessible, or who are just willing to take part of the study, so who are convenient in taking part of that study. It requires less effort, of course, because it's based on the convenience of the researcher and or of the um, respondents, especially when you have a limited time, so you can perform convenience sampling. Then we have quota. Let's say, for example, if you have a certain quota, if you want to say, study the, let's say, what do we have here? Let's just say if we want to study the preference of male and female students with respect to on to learning. For example, among the males, which is more preferred, online learning or face-to-face learning. For the females, we have online or face-to-face, just like that. So if you want to group them, study them or uh, compare between male and female preferences. So of course, you will have quota on how much male to interview and how much female to interview. However, you also have to refer it to the population, right? For example, in engineering, we have a lot of male students compared to female students. So we might be, say, studying only the male should composed of 70% of the total data and 30% of the total data would be from females. So that's your quota, no 70-30 uh, ratio. So now since it would, I think, much easier to get data from male students since there are a lot of male students in the engineering department. Then the problem arises when you have qualified other male respondents, but your quota has already reached, so you have to find more females participants to reach your 30% quota. So that would again become a bias, no, since fixed na ang imong gipangita. That's about quota sampling. Then we have purposive sampling. Based on a certain purpose in mind. Now, if or you have a predefined groups, if you want to study a specific group, for example, if you want to study only students who are above average income earners, whose parents are above average income earners, okay, then you have a purpose. Um, that's your respondents. So and you want to check for a particular product that they use, so you will be only be entertaining students on a certain social status. So that's purposive. The study is based on what is on the purpose of your study. What's the goal of your study? Okay, another example might be for a certain product. No? So if you want customer feedback, of course, you will only be asking those who have used your product. No, you will not be getting um, reviews from people who were not able to use. Again, for people who were not able to use your product, so you will have purposive sampling. Now, if you want reviews of your product, so again, these are examples of or examples of probability sampling techniques. Then we also have non-probability sampling techniques. You, um, here are the pros and cons and examples. So you have favorite colors of the CCS students. So your interview is done through email. So that's based on the convenience of everyone. Then you have quota. You're selecting only students without randomization, a specific number of students. You have purposive selection of respondents, which are predetermined based on the interest of the researcher. So these are examples of non-probability sampling. Now we also have probability sampling. So here in this topic we have five. No, I will be presenting five. Now please remember, please be reminded that these are just some of the sampling techniques. No, I have only presented for non-probabilistic and five for I presented five for probabilistic sampling. So which includes simple random sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, and multi-stage sampling. In the next video, we will be discussing these different sampling techniques one by one. So that's it. So we actually discussed the different non-probabilistic or non-probability sampling techniques, and I gave you an overview on what are the topics that we will be discussing under probability sampling. So see you on the next video.